Hey, welcome back to Mocktails with Marina. I'm your host, Marina, and today I am thrilled to introduce to you Sarah Kate, the founder of Some Good Clean Fun and the vibrant voice behind the Instagram Make It Non-Alcoholic. With a background in media and PR, Sarah Kate used her professional savvy and her personal experiences navigating perimenopause, parenting teens, and redefining her wellness to create a platform that empowers women to drink mindfully without losing the joy of celebration. She's here to remind us that drinking less doesn't mean living less, especially for women over 40 who are like totally ready to feel better, who are ready to sleep better, and who are ready to show up more fully in life. So, whether you're NA curious or a brand founder looking to connect more meaningfully with your audience, this is an episode you don't want to miss. Thank you so much for being here with us today, Sarah.
Oh, thank you for having me. It's such a joy, and I always love connecting with other people in the space on this really important topic.
Yeah, so many important stories and things that I want to touch with you on. So let's go ahead and get started right away by talking about the very beginning. Start with the origin story. So, can you take us back to the first few moments that made you start to rethink your relationship with alcohol?
Yeah, actually, it was a long time coming. I was parenting my young kids at the time. So now my kids are 13 and 16. So they're a bit older, but they were much younger. And I had always loved to drink my whole life. And, I couldn't wait to get back to drinking after having my babies in the sense of like drinking wine, like having wine with dinner. But I would say that I always considered myself sort of that average drinker. So drinking wine with dinner, drinking probably more on weekends, oh, it's a holiday, definitely like, go crazy, have lots more to drink on holidays. And it wasn't ever ruining my life per se until, towards the end of, 2018, mostly 2019. I was in a very, very toxic work situation. beginning of 2018. And I really, even 2017, I started really leaning on like having a bottle of wine every night. And it didn't start out to be a bottle. It started out to be, a couple, it was two glasses and then three turned to four, and then four turned to a bottle. And, and you're looking for validation from other people in your life who are also drinking bottles of wine. So a lot of my girlfriends also, drank wine every night. And so it was just sort of this commonality, I guess, that I didn't know there was such a thing as sort of mommy wine culture. And um, sort of the moment came when it was, it was just like I was just sick of my own bullshit. I don't know how else to explain it, but I was sick of my own excuses. I was sick of feeling like garbage. My life wasn't getting wrecked by any means, but I was lying in bed one night and I felt like I had, like I jumped the shark is what I call it. Like I had already had a bottle of wine, but I was like couldn't sleep. It was 2 a.m. I'm like, maybe I'll just go down and have like something harder to put myself to sleep. And that was sort of the penny dropping of like, this isn't you. This is not you. This is something else is happening. Like or not something else. I wasn't trying to blame anybody else, but it was like, this can't be you. This is not my life is meant for more. And didn't feel like I was delivering on that promise of the universe. I felt so out of alignment with who I am and what I was put on this earth for because I was so dull and so numb all the time to everything. And I had a lot of like issues in my marriage and with my job and stuff like that. So um, the moment, sort of the learning moment for me came when I read Annie, excuse me. The learning moment came for me when I read Annie Grace's This Naked Mind, because there was a massive shift for me in what alcohol was. So, and I got really angry because I thought, why don't we learn this when we're younger? Why don't we learn that it's the same thing that you're fueling your car with? And I felt kind of like a dusty curtain had been pulled away, and I started looking at alcohol differently because of that book. And it wasn't easy to quit drinking, but it made it a lot easier of a journey having read that book and starting out with a 30-day alcohol-free challenge and continuing to like build on that over the next 8 months. And it took me about 8 months to fully say like, okay, I'm totally alcohol free now. But um, really, it was just like, I'm sick of my own garbage. I'm sick of feeling like shit. My kids are watching me and they're learning that mommy's favorite thing is wine. And that made me so sad. And then I read this book and I was like, that's it, I'm done. I can't do I know I'm meant for more. And that's where we are, how we got here today.
Mm, it's a powerful story, and I know it's one that a lot of people can relate to. And I also want to note that I know a lot of different people grow up in different backgrounds where, um, you know, this wasn't even a thought, right? Like, for example, I grew up in the Midwest, and specifically my teen years were in Wisconsin, my early 20s. And there's this whole culture, even if you are in the sweetest environment with a super loving family, when there's a lot of alcohol present and it's something that's just like embedded into your day to day, it's a really hard thing to see and realize. Like, it's not always just like one morning the birds chirp in a particular way and it all just makes sense, right? Like, it's this whole journey. And I think that, that's really worth noting here. And your journey brought you to some good, clean fun. So tell us a little bit about that and specifically how your background in media and PR influenced the way that you built it.
Right. So the cool thing about my sort of story, I guess, is that I was sort of in the right place at the right time. So when I, chose this path in 2020, I realized that there were not a lot of non-alcoholic options out there. And I was looking across the pond at the UK and seeing like, wow, like they have so much stuff over there. And I am pretty good at foreseeing trends. Like, and I'm not going to get into my history, but I've called a lot of things long before. Like I called, vegan restaurants like in the 90s. And people were like, "What? A salad restaurant? What's that going to look like?" Anyway, so in 2020, I just had this feeling that this was the next wave. Like we've already conquered so many different areas of our health and wellness. And I just had this feeling that even though everybody was drinking their faces off in COVID, that non-alcoholic drinks specifically was going to be something really important in the future. And that I kept saying to everybody, if we can make hamburgers out of beans, for God's sake, we can make non-alcoholic stuff too. Like we've got to figure out, somebody's going to figure out how to do that. And little did I know that that was already in progress in 2020 and slowly things started coming out. But Some Good Clean Fun got started because um, I was making shrubs in my kitchen and trying to replicate cocktails with things I could find at the grocery store and buying cheap non-alcoholic wine, like the worst quality wine, and trying to figure out how to get it to taste more like wine by adding bitters to it and things like that. And so I wanted to do two things. I wanted to scream from the rooftops, like, ladies, stop drinking. This is the worst thing for you. Look at how happy and present I am. Like without any judgment. Like this is so bad for us. We've got to band together and take down big alcohol. Like this was what I was like in 2020. And then but on the other hand, I also wanted to share that, oh my gosh, you can still have a glass of wine without alcohol in it with your meal. Like, I didn't want to throw out my wine glasses. This was the saddest day for me when I was like, I can't bear to part with my wine glasses when I decided I'm not drinking anymore. I kept them in the cupboard. I kept them in the china cabinet. I'm like, I can't get rid of my wine glasses. It felt like truly like I was going to be grieving the glasses, not the alcohol, but grieving my like precious glassware. And then this moment of like, wow, there's a revolution here. There's a movement. There's people interested in non-alcoholic drinks. As I started talking more on Instagram, I started connecting more with people and realizing this was a huge movement. So I wanted a place to write about it. I wanted a place to share everything that um, share all the exciting stuff. And really, I somebody asked me recently, like, what was your primary motivation or message when you first started Some Good Clean Fun? I said, you know what? I just wanted to tell people, oh my God, you can have a great gin and tonic without alcohol in it. Like that was the most exciting thing for me in 2021 when I fully launched, like in 2021 April, when I fully launched Some Good Clean Fun. I was just so excited and like thrilled to be able to share all of this exciting stuff with people, and particularly women, because we're in such a delicate, a delicate situation or precarious situation, I guess, where we're getting marketed to, we're getting encouraged to drink wine, but we're the primary caregivers. And the more we drink, the less we can be good at juggling all the things that people expect from us. So that's sort of how that got started. And then sorry to ramble, but the other part of the question, how, my background, I worked in marketing and PR for many years, and social media. And so, it was sort of it was a huge part of the strategy, really, to be really clear with the branding, be really clear with like, where are we communicating this? How big can we communicate this? And optimizing all the opportunities like SEO and doing television appearances and social media, and all the ways that I learned in the past on how to market and how to talk about things and how to communicate and how to do branding. It all sort of came together into some good, clean fun.
Uh, the coolest part about this is, the more you dive in, and by the way, everybody listening, you can take a look at the description of this episode for all of the links for all of the things that we are talking about here. But as you scroll through your content, it's such a fun, it really is some good, clean fun, first off, but also, it's very welcoming and not restrictive. I think it's cool that, there's a lot of different ways. There's a lot, not only are there a lot of different, mocktails, a lot of different RTDs, a lot of different ways to have fun in this non-alc space, but also you talk about it with a lot of different dimensionality. And you also speak very directly to women who are navigating midlife. So,
Mhm.
how do you think alcohol specifically has been marketed towards that demographic in the past? And what are you looking to kind of refresh with that?
So I'm in a curious demographic. I'm in what's called the Xennial demographic, which is people who were born between 77 and 82 or something like that. Or like, so we're not quite elder millennials. I guess you could say elder millennials, or very, very young Gen Xers. Is that kind of gap there? And I feel like women in this, women of my age, over 40, I guess you could say, we are part of the generation where we watched Sex and the City in our 20s, and we had a lot of influence, a lot of things influencing us as women to be like men, be able to do things like men. And one of those things is to drink as much as men. So we there was a lot of like that messaging when we were growing up about like being hanging with the guys, hanging with the boys, having your like, for me anyway, it was like, drinking beers with the guys and keeping up with them. And then also being a woman. And also then, Sex and the City comes along, and it's like girl power, hanging out with your girls, having martinis, going to, it was the first time something like that had been shown on television. And it was like permission to like go out and have multiple cosmopolitans, and sort of that permission, to the encouragement of like drinking is really fucking sexy. And for me, that's sort of what looking back, I'm like, that was one of those influences in my 20s where it was like, okay, Carrie's going out and getting a Cosmo while I'm doing that on a Friday night too. And I don't think our mothers had that type of influence. And by the time sort of younger generations of women came around, I think it was a little bit different. People had already started sort of waking up, I think, a little bit more to some of that messaging. And but women in midlife now, we're going through this crazy stage of life where, and some people are going to get really turned off by this, but I always say like perimenopause is not a dirty word and we shouldn't treat it like that. But we're all starting to go through this phase in life where it's not so much about like, oh, alcohol's dangerous, alcohol's bad, alcohol causes cancer, and it does. Now it's about our wellness, and that alcohol's inflammatory. It gets processed in your liver, which is where all your hormones get processed. And so, we're all starting to complain about menopause symptoms, perimenopause symptoms. We're getting older. Our the hydration levels in our bodies are going down. And so alcohol is the last thing that we should be ingesting. The problem comes though in that we have, like you said, if it's been around you your whole life, then all of a sudden doctors and menopause celebrities are saying, don't drink, it's bad for you. There's a whole generation of us that are like, but wait, what do we drink instead? How do we stop drinking? How do we change our habits? So that's where we're at right now. I think we're in this place where there's a lot of women in this cohort who are sort of waking up to the realization that even one or two glasses of wine is going to give them a 3-day hangover, and it doesn't feel good, but they don't know what else to do. They don't know how to reduce, how to be mindful. They don't know what to drink. And there's a bit of an art to shifting from regular alcohol to like non-alcoholic. People who go directly from like a big bodied Napa to, I'm just trying to think of another non-alcoholic wine like a Loudest Savvy Red might be a little disappointed because it's not exactly the same. So
Right.
there's a bit of an art there, but I think that's where we're at. We're at that this is a real passion of mine, and I there's a parenting teens also. The other piece that goes with that, which is also super important, is that your kids are starting to set their own standards for their own lives. And you are no longer, the controller of your kids' lives. You're a consultant in their lives. And all you can do is show them how show them and teach them good habits as best you can so that they can make their own decisions. And this is a big one. They're going to start getting um, into situations where there's alcohol, where there's drugs and stuff, and you just want them to be able to make the best decision that they can.
I really appreciate your kaleidoscopic answers here because it really helps us see we can really see the full picture behind, not only your intention and where you come from, but also like there's so much more to this not drinking than what it seems or what is surface level.
Yep.
Anytime, like, back in the day, I haven't been asked this question in like 5 years, I think. But back when I very first stopped drinking in 2019, and I
Hmm.
was still performing in bars. So it was very much like, oh, well, why isn't she drinking here? Like, oh, is it terrible or what? And those questions, it used to be so difficult to even start that conversation. Whereas nowadays, I feel like so many more people, because it's a mainstream conversation, more so than it was before, especially compared to the media of the past, I think it's so worth diving even deeper. So this all being said, what, in your opinion, does clean fun really look like in your 40s? Not just what the absence is, but what is clean fun? And how do you encourage people to shift their mindset if they're having a hard time seeing it?
So one of the big thing, like one of the most mind-changing books that I read when I started this process, and I reference it in almost every interview, and it's really important, is a book. It's a book called Sober Lush. And in the book, one of the women, it's written by two women, and one of the women is at a Christmas party, and she'd given up drinking. She was in a similar situation to me, just like, blacking out at Christmas parties, losing her earrings, not remembering putting her kids to bed and stuff. And she was at a Christmas party and not drinking, and everybody around her was drinking, and it was an afternoon, Sunday afternoon, and it started snowing, and all the kids were begging to go out to go tobogganing. And all the adults were like, "Yeah, no, no, we'll take you later. We'll take you later," because they're all too busy drinking. And she said, "You know what? I'll do it." So she got her snow pants on in the middle of a Christmas party and went out and went sledding, tobogganing with the kids. And she said it was like a magical moment of being so super present and enjoying the lush feeling of being a kid and flying down a hill of fresh snow. And that stuck with me. Even 5 years later, I'm still talking about that one part of that book because that was the final nail in the coffin for me, was that I wanted to be present. And that is what, excuse me, that is what good, clean fun means. It means being joyful, being present, and not relying on something else to make you feel good or to make you not feel good, or um, tuning in to the joy and the lushness of every situation. And sure, if it's your mother-in-law at dinner, and you want to chug a glass of wine, it's not always that easy to find the joyful presence in that situation. But um, it's the I to me, it's taking life head on. And I just want to make a like a sort of a short sidebar here that there's a lot of layers to peel back on the onion before you can get to that place. So, if you're thinking, okay, I want to give up, I'm going to give up alcohol and it's going to be joyful right away. It's still a bit of a struggle at the beginning because you have to unpeel the layers of why you were drinking so much in the first place. And and if you're not even drinking that much, but why are you relying on a Friday night glass of wine? Like, what's that thing? Is it habit? Is it judgment from others? Is it because everybody else is doing it? You've got to peel back some of those layers first, but some good, clean fun. And another sidebar too, I know that clean doesn't, I know I've had some pushback on the term clean because there's a connection to like sober, recovery, being clean, and the derogatory opposite of that, which is that like addicts are dirty. So I just want to clear the air that like that wasn't the intention at all. It just, to me, it's just like uh, clean in spirit, clean in, in your in what you're doing. You're not intoxicating yourself. You're not adding anything in that's gonna take away from that purity of joy.
Yeah, it's all about balance. And I think it's always an important reminder, no matter how many times this topic comes up on this podcast, I will always repeat, your definition of sober is yours, right? So whatever clean means to you is what matters here. And I think that that's important to also, you know, speaking of community, let's talk about it a little bit because sometimes, community is great in the sense that we're taught oftentimes that the opposite of addiction is being with people, right? Because addiction is a very solo
Yeah,
activity.
yeah.
But on the other hand, maybe some people are in communities that are super full of alcohol or super full of, you know, kind people, but they're just not understanding your journey.
Yeah.
So, what would you say to people, maybe give us a little insight for you? What has community meant to you over the years, the good, the bad, and the ugly?
So it's funny. Oh, so funny. I was just thinking about this the other day, how even within the community of people who don't drink, there's so many different groups, so many different communities where you belong or don't belong. And I didn't go through typical AA. I didn't go through recovery. I did it on my own. I white knuckled it a little bit. um, Connected with people on Instagram and stuff. So I've never fit into the beautiful sober recovery space. The people there are incredible, but I don't have that shared experience with them. So, but I look at them from afar and I just think, wow, it's so incredible to see how close knit some of these, so especially like in person. I know several like groups of people who are in sober recovery together, and they're so tight, and I love that. I love that it creates these special bonds. But for me, I think I was in more of a place of I just wanted to connect with people who were as excited about about all this as I was. And so my one of my first things, I used to co-host a Instagram channel called 1,000 Hours Dry. It's still out there in some capacity, but there was 1,000 Hours Dry, there was 1,000 Hours Dry Parents, there was 1,000 Hours Dry mothers or fathers. I don't remember. There was a whole bunch of them, but I was one of the co-hosts, the community hosts on that Instagram account, and it was so it was a beautiful thing because through there I met a whole bunch of people who were in similar places as I was in their sort of sober, curious, alcohol-free journey, creating content together to help other people. It was immediately yes. Immediately yes. Like, yes, I want to be part of this. I want to like use my voice with you guys. And that was a huge now that I didn't appreciate it as much at the time, but now I look back and I'm like, I was so lucky that I got to have that experience in my, in I think it was 2021, when I started hosting, and I made like some lifelong friends from that. Um, but also I wanted to, through some good clean fun also, I believe that my newsletter subscribers are my community, and it feels good to know that there's that many people out there who are interested in this alternative lifestyle. And I think if nobody was listening to what I was saying and there was no community, it wouldn't have been as easy. And I think that um, for most people out there, I'm going to say that finding a good community of people who are in at a similar stage as you is super important for this journey, because it's not easy. This is the hardest decision that anybody's going to make in this millennia, I believe, is like not drinking, because it's so embedded in our culture that it is lonely. It's so like, I know addiction, they say addiction is lonely, but recovering from addiction or getting sober, choosing an alcohol-free lifestyle, especially during a pandemic, is so bloody lonely. Um, yeah, and so that's sort of my my spiel on that. I think community is super important, and hang on to those people, because it's a really difficult road.
Yeah, it does require a little bit of seeking. Like they're not, it's like step one, okay, we've decided not to drink. And then those who are currently around you and support can stick around, others fall away. But then after that, yeah, it's like it's a moment where you have this like spaciousness for the first time to like think and feel, and there's so much going on. So, but that's the beauty of that moment, because then you get to choose what's next, and you get to choose what vibe comes around you, what you want the next part to be like. So,
Yeah.
I'm curious for you, what has been the most unexpected part of running some good, clean fun? Like, I know, we're talking about, the journey is not quite linear, right?
Mhm.
And throughout this time, even when you first started, to get your bearings about it. And what I mean by that is like, when we first get into this new lifestyle, there's some touches and goes, right?
Yeah.
But then you kind of start to find your rhythm. And and that being said, like I'm curious about what unexpected things have come, like what other types of unexpected revelations have come from that for you? Like does it feel like there's always something to overcome, or does it get lighter? Is the question that I feel like I get asked a lot. Like, does it get easier?
Oh, I'm so glad you asked me this, because there's two ways I could answer this. From the business perspective, it's still a struggle. And anybody listening to this who's starting a non-alcoholic business, it's hard. It's hard. It's a hard industry. But with the on the alcohol free, like the lifestyle side of it, I said to somebody the other day, and you're gonna laugh maybe, because this is such a funny thing to think about, but I used to be not a heavy smoker, but I used to smoke in my 20s, and like again, stopped when I had my first child and then started in between babies again. And I had a spontaneous quitting. Like I quit spontaneously. I had a spontaneous gross reaction to a cigarette. And I was like, I'm never smoking again. Like spontaneously, I just quit. I was like, this is gross. I hate it.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, it was really bizarre, because then 3 days later, 3 days later, I got pregnant. So I didn't find out for several weeks, but it was almost like God was, I'm not a religious person, but I'm like, that was a religious moment. Like God purposely made me stop smoking so that I could get pregnant.
Aw.
Um, anyway, I was thinking about it. And so this would have been 2010, 2011, like early 2011 when this happened. But when I quit smoking, there wasn't really social media at the time. Like there's a little Facebook was growing for sure. There was no Instagram, I don't think, at that time, or very few people were on Instagram. And I was like, can you imagine if I'd walked out to the smoking area and held up a poster board at work, held up a sign like smoking is bad for you, and gone to all the workplaces that I ever worked, and like was shouting from the rooftops like stop smoking. I never even told, like, I didn't even, I just said, somebody said, are you want to go for a smoke? No, I'm not into it. I don't feel like it. And that's it. Like, Never thought about it again. And years, this is now like 15, 14 years later, I'm like, I couldn't even smell cigarette smoke. Sometimes I smell it. I'm like, I miss smoking, but I don't actually miss smoking. Like I wouldn't be able to even have a drag of a cigarette. Like it, and I never think about it. It's never on my mind. And so I was telling somebody the other day that like for 4 or 5 years, I've been walking around with a poster board on me saying, stop drinking, quit drinking. Like it's not good for you. It's not healthy for you. And it's like, at some point and somewhere along the line, I just stopped. I didn't stop caring about other people quitting drinking, but for inside me, I don't even think about it anymore. Like even though I'm shouting from the rooftops, like it's almost where I'm at with smoking, where it's like I don't think about it's so much lighter now. Like there's never a moment where I'm like, I really need to have a drink. I really like, or I'm really regretting my choice. Like I barely ever think about it. And in fact, I went to a dinner the other night. This was maybe 2 months ago, and my husband looked at me and he said, "You didn't bring anything out. You didn't bring anything for you to drink. Like I usually bring a bottle of non-alcoholic wine or something with me." I had completely forgotten. It was a big, I forget what it was. It was a big family dinner. And I had forgotten to bring my, because I didn't even think about it. Um, so it does get lighter. It does get lighter and years go by and I'm not saying the message is less important. Nobody should smoke. Please drink mindfully. Like it's just right. It's just like the internally, it's like that was my identity. Smoking was my identity. Drinking was my identity. And then it goes away and it's not your identity anymore. It just like your identity is closer to you, to the true you when you're not doing all these things. There's no crutch anymore. It's like the naked truth of who you are when you don't have these things, and it becomes a lot easier there's no weight to carry anymore. You're not carrying the weight of a mask or the the thing that's not you. You're truly more in a like a much, yeah, lighter. I love how you said that. It's a much lighter place.
I just got goosebumps from that because it really is a coming back to yourself. And I feel like when we're younger, we don't really know what we're running from or why. We're just like running around. Like
Hmm.
we're
Hmm.
just trying to figure it all out. And it turns out all along, like, yeah, maybe some things happened that, you had to protect yourself or you had to act a different way, but there is a coming back home that happens with this process that is just so it's wholesome and it doesn't always feel that way at first. It definitely, the first part of sobriety, I would never describe as wholesome. In fact, I would say it's quite the opposite. And it's,
It's
there's
a
a lot of
fucking
profanities.
nightmare. It's a fucking
Yes,
nightmare.
it
It
really
and like I'm
is.
not going to sugarcoat. I'm not going to sugarcoat it. It is the loneliest fucking nightmare you've ever gone through because
Mhm.
you feel like nobody else around you gets what you're doing and you're so bored because you have never learned how to do other things. You can't have a drink, so you sit and sulk about it instead of I look at my parents who are never drinkers, like have never been drinkers. My grandfather passed away from alcohol abuse when my mom was 16, so it was very much banned in our house. Probably why I went the other direction. I don't mean to laugh about that, but I'm just like, it's crazy how that happens. But so I look at my parents and like they're not bored. Like they always had things to do. They always had something of value. Not that they were busy, but they never felt that you're unsettled when you have been drinking for a long time in the evenings, having a glass of wine with dinner, having a glass of wine when you're putting the kids to bed, having a glass of wine, oh, I have a story, actually, sidebar story. This is still so close to it still sits in my heart and weighs on my heart. But my daughter, um, we got rid of my daughter's dollhouse years ago, but she recently revealed to me that she used to look at her dollhouse and not want to play with it because there was a stain, a circular red wine stain on it from where I would leave my glass of wine when I was reading to her.
Mm.
And so when I say your kids are watching, you don't even know how much they're watching until afterwards, and then immediately immediately when you hear these things, you're like, holy, I can't believe I didn't see that. But yeah, sorry, back to the subject of like, yeah, it's a certain restlessness that you get when you decide to give up drinking, but you relearn over time how to be alone with yourself, how to be alone with your thoughts, how to emotionally deal with things coming your way, how to process emotions, how to process stress, how to process anxiety without reaching for a glass of wine. It's really like that's all that I don't know how much I can stress that, but it's like it's a relearning of how to be yourself and how not to be bored with life.
Yeah, I can definitely relate to that. I mean, when you were talking about cigarettes, because for me, that was the catalyst that got me to quit drinking. Because I felt like I was so insanely addicted to cigarettes that like it was part of the reason I liked drinking so much. It was part, like, it was just, it was so much in my thinking that like I would watch the clock and I told myself that it was fine because, well, it's only once an hour and I would watch until that
Mhm.
hour happened. And then once I was finally like, okay, I need to quit because if I want to be an actual athlete, because I was dancing and performing at the time,
Mhm.
I need to be able to have like my lung capacity and all the things. And it started so surface level. But then once the absence was there and I started to realize how much of my brain power had been taken, I kind of started to panic a little because I was like, oh my God, have I been under hypnosis?
Yeah,
And then
yes.
I
Yes.
look back and I look at all the people that I'd surrounded myself with over the past decade and the what types of media I would watch, the types of music I would listen to, everything. I was like, oh my God, I was in such a hypnosis, not just from the alcohol, not just from the cigarettes, but from all of these other things and all, like you mentioned, like it really is a coming back to yourself and like understanding like kids are so present. That's why, like, they're so precious for so many reasons, but they're so present that, like, when we actually get to like experience that bliss that comes on the other side of finding our sobriety and we're like, "Oh my goodness, like this is that precious presence. Like this is what they feel. Like this is that childlike wonder that we've been numbing ourselves to. Why? I don't know. All the hypnosis of all the things that happened around and it's so easy to yeah, glamorize the other side of it, but I would say that I from so 2019, you know, I got sober, then 2020 was the pandemic. So it was like, cool, I gave up alcohol just in time to have to give up my career too. And
Oh,
but then I really dove deep into non-alc at that point, and just remember like feeling so alone for so long. Like, thank good, like I found my husband during that time, which was incredible, but it was also like an insane, like literally shedding of just everything at that time, and it was so much all at once, but also over the course of like 3, 4 years of just like just double checking with myself like am I like let me double like there I have a lot of feelings, there's a lot of new things that like and
yeah.
all these other people fell out and now you know you find the new that come in during this time because yeah, you're
It's
coming back
new.
to yourself, it's new.
It's new because yeah, we you spend your whole like decade, whatever it was like, however long it was, but for me it was at least a decade of like not being present. And I think you asked me, and I sort of I didn't answer your question about like what are the things that have surprised me about this whole thing. And I think the main thing that I did not expect because I didn't ever think about it. I thought I had a great relationship with my kids. But I have a great relationship with my kids now, and it would not be like this if I had been drinking, if I had been having wine every night, if I had, you know, working from home during the pandemic, and like it has been the most joyful, the most precious, the most sweetest surprise of all of this is that like I love spending time with them. I go watch their games. I'm not annoyed when I have to be around them. Where before, you know, you're irritated all the time, and it's not your kids. It's that you just want to get numb again. You want to have a glass of wine to help you, you know, with the feelings that you have of like being with your kids and having to manage everything and whatever. And it's such a beautiful thing. That's one of the most unexpected things. And the other unexpected thing too about some good clean fun is just how engaged the community is and how on that side on the you know how many people are still looking for I keep thinking okay we've reached the end, my nobody's going to visit my website this month, like we've reached the pinnacle, and The next month, there's more people visiting the website. So that's the other unexpected thing, how fast the industry's grown, but how many people are truly interested in this lifestyle. It's not just about the drinks, but I do really believe that these people who are visiting Some Good Clean Fun are they're starting with mocktail recipes, they're starting to read my non-alcoholic wine reviews because they're truly interested in making this shift. And that's what makes me so excited about the future.
Mm. Sarah, thank you so much for sharing so much of your wisdom, your insight, and your stories with us today. And I want to make sure that all of our listeners know exactly how they can connect with you, but also, you know, tell us a little bit about, what it is that you are trying to call into the world. Like, tell us specifically, like, what kinds of collaborations or people are you looking to attract and either connect with, help, or, just expand with?
Okay, so I have some really exciting news. You're the first to hear this. Well, not the first, but
Ooh.
like one of the first podcasts to hear this anyway. I just launched on Substack because I really have felt I'm kind of sick of like short form content on social media, to be honest. I feel like it's very repetitive and being a creator is so fun. I love making videos. And just a side note that my Make It Non-Alcoholic Instagram has changed back to Some Good Clean Fun. That's a long story, but I had to start a new account last year. It had to have a different name, and now I've reclaimed Some Good Clean Fun on Instagram. So it's back to my closer to my heart, the brand that's close to my heart. So I have the Instagram channel there, and making that content is fun. It's a lot of work, but I've been writing long form content on my website for a long time, and I had a newsletter going out. I moved over to Substack because I felt like it's really a great community, and I really want people to go to Substack, so somegoodcleanfun.substack.com. And whether you subscribe to my newsletter or not, the great thing about Substack is you can leave comments on all of the newsletter posts, all of the content on there. You can add comments. Like if you have a Substack account, you can leave comments, create conversations. You can join the chat and create conversations. If you're interested in the business of non-alcoholic drinks, or you're a person who's drinking mindfully, or you're interested in being sober curious, or you're looking for sober support, Substack is a great place to be. And I feel like it's a more wholesome place, to be honest, than some of the other platforms. And there's a lot of other people to to explore on Substack as well. So my website, my standalone website is somegoodcleanfun.com. The community is now living at somegoodcleanfun.substack.com. And you can find me on Instagram at somegoodcleanfun.
Yay! Thank you so much for being here today, Sarah. I really appreciate everything you bring to the table.
Thank you so much for having me. This was truly a delight, and I'm so grateful for this opportunity to talk about this very important subject again.
Yay. And thank you for listening to this episode today. If you want to take a look at any of the resources we mentioned in this episode, go ahead and take a look at the description. You can also send me an email, hello@marinamars.com, with any questions, comments, anything that comes up in your mind at all from this episode. Whether those questions or comments are for me or for Sarah, we will absolutely make sure they get to the right place and get them answered. So thank you so much for being here. As always, if you need anything, just let me know.